So let's talk about social play and functional communication training and what it means for your classroom. The children here have been fighting over toys during recess. We are going to address this problem by teaching them how to talk to one another. Functional communication training. What is it? Functional communication training, or FCT, is a method to teach students how to communicate their wants and needs. This method is beneficial here because the students are at different levels of communication. This method will work with nonverbal, verbal, and children who use some form of assistance to communicate to one another. How to use FCT. For this method, we will use a choice board. Using a choice board will encourage communication of wants and needs from the students. In the morning, adults will model the use of a choice board, and in the afternoon, independent choice will be encouraged for use for the students. Students who are verbal can ask using a functional communicative response that has been taught to them. Nonverbal individuals can point, touch, or emit any verbal approximation within their abilities. We want to ensure that only upon emitting the functional communicative response will reinforcement be attained. No reinforcement should be given if the individual is resorting to problem behavior in an attempt to gain access to the item. Moving on to social play, we will be using a method called sit, play, and talk. This method will encourage the students to sit near each other, play with the same or similar toys, and eventually talk to one another about what they are playing with. During the sit phase, we will teach students how to sit in the play area. During play, we will teach students how to play with the center. And in talk, we will focus on teaching students how to talk about what they are doing. How do we use this in the classroom, you may ask? Well, we will set up 3 centers in your classroom: a kitchen center, a baby doll center, and a race car center. There will be accessories in each center that will eventually encourage the children to work together. The centers have been set up. What's the next step? A teacher or aide will be assigned a group of students to teach. These groups will consist of 2 to 4 students, contingent upon class size. The students will also be evenly dispersed based on their level of communication, as some students will serve as models for peers to learn from. The children will then be assigned to a center, which will rotate daily. And we will explain this process of rotation later on in the slideshow. The teacher will begin working with the group on the steps in the sit, play, and talk method. Step 1. Sit. Some of the students will sit. Some students will move around, while some students may try to get up and walk away. The goal is to teach students to stay in the area of the center. This stage will last for the first 10 minutes of each center time, and we want to ensure that we are reinforcing students with praise, such as "great job sitting" or "I like how you're staying in the kitchen area." Don't forget to continue to praise those who are doing this already. It is important because you will have students who know how to stay sitting in the area, and they need to hear praise too, and the other kids will be learning from them as well. Praise and attention are powerful reinforcers when used appropriately and consistently. Step 2. Play. What does this look like? Teachers and adults will show the children how to play with the center. For example, you can hold the baby doll, sing to the baby doll, cook food in the kitchen, or even make a plate of food in the kitchen, while you can also start building a racetrack or push the race cars, depending on which center you're working in. Picture models will be made available to you, and these pictures will be shown while you're playing with the center. This is used as an added learning resource, and eventually you will be able to show a child a picture and they will model and play just as the example shows in the picture. Give students items within the center to play with, and allow the students to play, and also give them time to experience the center on their own terms. Just as in the sit phase, this part of the intervention will last 10 minutes as well. We want to ensure that we are continuing to praise students for sitting and for also playing with the toys. Keep praising. You can't do too much when they're doing what is expected. Play modeling. What's that? You will show students what to do in the center. For example, you can play with a baby doll. You can feed it, change its clothes, put it in the crib if you're playing in that center. Images like the examples on the slide will be available for each center. Step 3. Talk. Talk is the longest part of the intervention, as it lasts 30 minutes in length. Teachers and adults will model talking about what they are doing, such as, I am rocking the baby, or I am feeding the baby, if they're playing in the baby doll center. We want to encourage students to talk to each other while they're playing with toys. Again, just as in play, visuals will be available to help prompt students on what to do. And remember, we want to continue to praise the students for not only sitting, playing with the centers, but also for talking to one another. More hints on what to talk about. Questions such as, what color is the baby's dress? Or, Jenny, that baby looks tired. What do you think? Can be provided to start a conversation amongst students. You can always prompt the students to talk to each other too, and even better, they may even praise each other as well. Okay, but how does this work in my classroom, you may ask? Don't worry, we will work with you in your classroom. Here is a model schedule of your day, provided on the left side of this PowerPoint. Keep in mind, we will place interventions in your classroom based on current schedules, and we will try not to make too many changes in your day. As you can see, the schedule shows 2 slots for centers. The morning time slot is the longer of the two, and is the one where students will be assigned in groups. The teacher will choose the center for them during this time. The center choice will rotate daily, so all groups will have a chance to play at each center. The second center slot is in the afternoon and is free choice for the students. There is still a limit to how many kids can be in each center, which was 2 to 4 depending on your class size. Before students are allowed to make a free choice, they will be called one by one to make a choice from the board. They will be able to play independently without formal instruction, but just like in the morning, we want to ensure we're still providing reinforcement during this time. Bringing FCT and sit, play, talk together. The goal is we want to help students make choices. FCT choice boards will show center availability. During the morning center block, students will be assigned centers. For the purpose of demonstration, this class has 9 students, 2 regular education students, 2 students receiving speech therapy, with 1 being nonverbal, and the remaining 5 are special education, but verbal. This is an example of the choice board center, which will be placed in your classroom. The morning center time will be chosen by the teacher. A student will be called up and will watch you pull the race car off the board, for example, and he or she will walk to the race car center with you. This will continue for all students. This will be a model for how they will choose for free time center choice in the afternoon. The choice is made. What's next? The children will go to the assigned center. A teacher or an aide will also be present during the center. During this time, the sit, play, and talk model will be implemented. Remember to always stay positive and praise your students for the target behaviors. Data. Yes, data is important. It will inform us of whether or not the intervention is working and, for example, allow us to determine whether or not tantrums are decreasing, as well as fighting behavior. The following are data sheets that will be used for this intervention. To the left is the sit, play, and talk data sheet, which will inform us of how often students are getting up to leave the center, each time a student independently plays with an item in the center, as well as each time a student will independently communicate or talk to a peer in the center. To the right side is the problem behavior and manding behavior data sheet. This will allow us to keep track of how often a tantrum occurs, or how long a tantrum occurs, as well as the frequency of fighting behaviors, and each time the child independently or appropriately requests an item or an activity. We will train all of you on how to use these data sheets correctly, as well as provide them for you during the intervention. How to handle fighting. The most important thing to remember is to stay calm. Do not engage with the student, and try to remain as non-reactive as possible. Gently remove the toy from the student if fighting occurs. We want to ignore tantrum or screaming behavior as long as no danger is present, as we don't want anyone getting hurt. If a student has a behavior intervention plan in place for fighting, please follow the method described for the individual students. We want to also be sure that we are increasing the amount of praise for students playing appropriately. To recap, we will be using functional communication training and the sit, play, talk method in order to teach your students how to use a functional communicative response in order to request items, making a choice using a choice board to make a choice to go to a center, while also encouraging students to sit in an area, teach them how to play appropriately with toys, and teach them how to communicate with one another. When used together, FCT will help students how to make a choice and request items appropriately using words, while sit, play, and talk will also teach them how to play together and communicate with each other. Most importantly, we want to remember to praise our students. The following are praise statements that you can use if they do something that is absolutely wonderful.